Yo, what's up, guys, and welcome back to the Oak Mountain Podcast. I'm Raniyah,
I'm Yashpaul.
and today we'll be doing
Communism versus Capitalism.
With special guest, me, Mrs. Nichols.
With me on the side of communism.
And I'm on the side of capitalism.
And as one of our 6th grade social studies teachers, I'm here to facilitate the conversation and make sure that the Cold War doesn't start again.
Let's start with
Capitalism.
Okay.
Well, capitalism is a topic that has both pros and cons, but a few pros about capitalism are rights, such as individual freedom. If we didn't have rights like these, then America would be a horrible dystopia. And although we still have laws, it's still a free country. And unlike communism, capitalism promotes these freedoms.
Yeah.
Pros of capitalism also include the promotion of economic growth, which is the increasing of productivity and the consumption of things like water, food, and furniture. Others include efficiency, consumers' choice, and job creation.
So thanks for mentioning that about it promotes freedoms. I think that's a really important part. Capitalism really in its most basic form is going to encourage innovation. I always like to use the example of the washing machine. The inventor of the washing machine was a man named Alva Fisher, who's just, out here doing the Lord's work. He was incentivized by creating wealth for himself, and then he created something that he saw as a need in our society, the ability to wash clothes quickly and efficiently. So people loved that idea. They bought the washing machines like crazy, and then people got countless hours of their life back because society made the free choice that convenience had a price tag. More washing machines were bought, and Alva Fisher made a lot of money. I mean, look at Amazon or Apple, Nike, anything, and apply the same principle, making society better and making money in the process of doing that. And all that's great. But Raniyah, do you think that capitalism and all of this innovation has a downside?
Well, when capitalism runs unchecked, which has a very hard to pronounce and fancy name,
Laissez-faire. It's French for hands off. Laissez-faire.
Laissez-faire,
Yeah.
and means the government isn't stepping up to help control worker wages or conditions. Then it creates a very scary gap between the wealthiest people and the poorest people, meaning there is no middle class. And believe it or not, a strong middle class is the mark of a strong society.
Yeah.
It also comes with a heavy environmental impact, and some industries might put money over the environment or short-term gains over long-term gains, leading to environmental degradation. Others include things like market instability, lack of social safety nets, and exploitation.
Ooh, exploitation. I think that is a good place for Yashpaul to jump in with communism.
All right, guys. Communism is a W for real. Here's why.
Let's hear it.
Okay. It's a government system and an economic system that advocates for total equality and cooperation among citizens. It basically is giving up some of your rights for equality. For example, you can't leave or enter an extremely communist country, and a lot of things are censored. Yeah, I've been on a lot of censored things before. I'm glad I'm not in a communist society. Another good thing in a communist society, all the goodies, being wealth and resources, are owned by the government and equally distributed, quote, from each according to their ability to each according to their needs.
Interesting.
Communist ideology stemmed from the philosophies of Karl Marx. He also worked with his buddy Friedrich Engels, but nobody really cares about him, to be real. Now, this Marx guy, he theorized that the working class would overthrow the ruling class due to the laissez-faire capitalism stuff mentioned earlier. He thought that this would pave the way to the establishment of a classless society, communism.
Interesting.
It is also important to mention that in laissez-faire capitalism, people can still do what they want, but as I mentioned earlier, it gives the ruling class too much power, causing a gap between the upper and lower classes.
Interesting.
Yes. And seeing this, people who initially tried communism were willing to give up some of their rights because they just saw how badly laissez-faire capitalism turned out.
Okay, so Yashpaul, those are all good points. So what then, kind of same question that we asked Raniyah, what are the downsides to communism? I'm sure you can think of one or two.
Well, here's the truth. Communism isn't all sunshine and rainbows. It's more like moonlight and monochromatism. You see, communism sounds good on paper, but the execution fails. A communist country is meant to be a classless society where everyone is equal, where there is no ruling class to suppress anyone, but humans are motivated by power and money. Relatable, I feel that. And this causes the government to become more like the ruling class they swore to destroy in the end. An example of this is the infamous Joseph Stalin and the USSR. Joseph Stalin and the Communist Party bent rules, used propaganda, and used other methods to gain maximum power over the people, and having the people be, quote-unquote, okay with it. The main takeaway here is that human selfishness and motivations will break the rules that communism advocates for.
Not to mention that communist societies, there is an overregulation for everything, to the point where you can only vote for one party, in this case, the Communist Party. Can't leave or enter the country, among other things. Capitalism encourages innovation in a competitive economy, while communism is the opposite.
Okay, Raniyah, Yashpaul, I have to say, as someone who has been teaching this for many years, I am really impressed with y'all's very solid understanding. These are some really, really complicated principles, and I would say a lot of adults can't even speak about this as well as you guys can. So now I have a question for both of you, okay? You've both talked about how both systems have their pros and cons. So Raniyah, you said that capitalism helps make our society better by encouraging innovation and freedom to pursue your dreams. But unchecked, it can, and it has actually led to the working class being exploited by working in dangerous conditions and for very little money. And then, Yashpaul, you said that communism seeks to establish equality in a society in which no one wants for anything, but can, and has, also led to basic rights and freedoms being taken away in the name of conformity. So, Raniyah, why would so many people support capitalism if it has so many problems?
Well, unlike communism, capitalism has problems, but it also has many
Benefits.
benefits. And it also lets people do what they need to do instead of confiding them into one thing.
Okay.
And letting everyone be either or
Oh,
than something else.
okay. So for you, you're saying that it's kind of worth all of the problems. Obviously there's no perfect system, but in the end, people have freedom, and that's really important. I hear that. Okay. Yashpaul, same question. Why would so many people support communism if it has so many problems?
Okay, Oak Mountain, I just want you to know that Miss Nichols, this dastardly goober, decided to add stuff to the script that we never ever did, so we have to answer this on the spot, okay?
Cannot believe that an actual history teacher would make you do this.
Yeah, this
The
is
nerve.
quite interesting, but luckily I do have an answer. So, really, it's not really the people supporting communism necessarily. It's just that nobody's really supporting it. They all supported it when it was a new idea, and they just wanted to get out of the laissez-faire capitalism, and we saw how badly the USSR went.
Yeah.
That's why it's not the USSR anymore. So, honestly, it's not really the people supporting it. And in the countries that are still communist today, such as North Korea, I don't think that's a very happy country in my personal book.
Yeah.
And China, I mean, actually, it's also important to mention that different countries have different scales of how communist they are.
Right.
So, on a scale from laissez-faire to communism, America would be on the laissez-faire side. On the same scale, China would be still a little bit there, but still on the communist side instead.
Yeah.
So it's not really. People support it. They only supported it back then, basically. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, I agree with you. We often call America the great experiment. We're experimenting with democracy and capitalism, and we see how that has continued to be our reigning systems over the last 200-something years, whereas communism was also a great experiment, and it did not quite work out or have the longevity that many were hoping that it would. Well, guys, I honestly have to say, this conversation makes me so glad that I teach social studies here at Oak Mountain, because I love the great conversations like this one that we get to have. Yashpaul, Raniyah, y'all did a great job. I'm super proud of y'all. Great work.
Okay. This podcast is nearing its termination.
Was that a joke about Stalin?
Huh?
Did you make a termination joke about Stalin? Okay, never mind.
Okay. This
We'll have to take
podcast.
Miss Nichols' class if you want to know more about that.
Okay. This podcast is nearing its termination, so don't forget to subscribe to Oak Mountain Media Middle School Edition for more epic podcasts, interviews, and more.
And with that, see you next time and have a great day.